Should be going live. It says we're going live. Therefore, we're likely live. Probably. Yeah, it says we have an excellent connection. I think we're good to go. So, for those watching, welcome. This is... I'm adjusting my camera because I knocked it off. But yeah, welcome everyone. This is the On Just Restart podcast. We do this almost every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, barring a break, like for Easter. But this time around,
we did take Easter off.
We did take we took Easter off. But this time around, we are back, and we're going to be talking about Nintendo as we usually do. This time around, we're going to be talking about how Nintendo has been confirmed to be having a presence at E3 2021. So we're beginning diving deep into that. We're also going to be talking about these remakes that are now rumored for Fire Emblem 2, actually. So we're going to be talking about that. Is this the same sort of Fire Emblem we've been discussing that would be perhaps getting announced this year? Maybe. So we're going to talk about that as well, on top of these datamines that have sort of arisen from the latest Switch firmware update. So we got Switch firmware 12.0. There wasn't too much to the firmware itself on the surface, but there were some datamines that are hinting at some interesting changes that are a little confusing right now. One of them has to do with an updatable dock. But the dock we have doesn't really have any components that seem like you could update software-wise.
I literally think it can't be updated because it doesn't have its own controller, CPU, or anything like that.
Not to my knowledge, right? Yeah. So the datamine suggesting that there will be a dock in the future that can get updates, and there's also another little datamine that's suggesting perhaps Bluetooth audio support in the future as well. Yeah. So things that seem to sort of line up with a lot of the Bloomberg reports that are discussing a revised Switch with 4K functionality. So yeah, we got some stuff to talk about. We got a whole bunch of Nintendo E3 stuff, the Fire Emblem remake rumors, and Switch 4K, I guess. And I feel like that alone can kind of encompass the entire podcast. But there's also been a few other little things that have been popping up as well. Like there's we have this, I guess they're like the ratings put out for a Sonic Colors remaster. So it seems like we're getting Sonic Colors, which I think is like one of the best Sonic games ever. That was an exclusive, or at least a timed exclusive, back on the Nintendo Wii. It was a very strong 3D Sonic game. So supposedly it's getting remastered. That's pretty exciting. We also got some new footage for No More Heroes 3 and new Pokemon Snap this week. It kind of seems like the news is sort of... It was a fairly large news week is the point.
Yeah, there was definitely some interesting things to go over.
Yeah, so we have stuff to talk about tonight, guys. But for those watching, I am On Just Restart, and this is Brandon from WhataboutNodnarb. His channel is linked in the description below. But we were talking earlier because Brandon's been working a lot with our friend Sean from Model64 lately. He streams a lot of games, makes a lot of video gaming music as well. So I definitely think you guys should check out his channels. I have both his YouTube and Twitch linked in the description below. And Brandon, I know you've been kind of hanging out with him lately, so if there's anything else you want to sort of add to that, go for it.
Yeah, we've been making a lot of music together. He's made music before, a lot of remixes, but we're kind of going hard this year, making more music than ever before, and we're actually making music together now. And not to brag, but I think it's some of the best music that's ever come out of his channel. So we just recently made a remix of Phendrana Drifts from Metroid Prime. If you haven't heard that, you gotta give it a listen. It is absolutely incredible. And we actually made that live on stream. So if you're anything of a music buff, he does his music, a lot of it on stream, some of it's off stream as well. We're making some private stuff as well that we're gonna start collabing on. I'm actually starting to make my own music too. And he streams typically Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. He does video games, a lot of Smash, sometimes Among Us, but we also do music stuff and other random things as well. So it's always a good time, and I'm always there as well. So if you want to hang out with me, hang out with him, do some music stuff, here's some great remixes as well as some original music coming soon. In fact, I think tomorrow we're hopefully doing a stream where we make some Doom-inspired music together. So that's gonna be pretty awesome. So yeah, you guys should definitely check that out because he deserves a lot more support, and I think his stuff is really good. I think we're gonna do some really awesome stuff in the future as well.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. I can tell you that Sean has shared some music with me before that I think is really great. There's a I haven't used it yet, but there is a Xenoblade composition that he gave me permission to use, a remix of it. I think it's it sounds pretty amazing, so don't be surprised if you hear like some pretty amazing Xenoblade music at some point in a future video that will be made by Sean. So definitely, check him out. His channels are linked in the description below. But let's check in with the chat here before we jump into the topics. Say hello to everyone. Hello there, Seahawks24. How you doing, bud? Alejandro, hello. Visible Broken, good evening. Nishon Edwards. They said, I need a new Fire Emblem remake game, preferable Tellius for Ike or Genealogy for story, because the characters seem really cool. Yeah, I mean, I've been expecting a Fire Emblem for a while. I do think it's going to be a remake. Maybe it's what's being rumored. Maybe. Right now, it's looking, according to the rumor, it's going to be the GameCube and Wii games, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I'm not 100% convinced yet that it's those, but we're going to get into it. Hello there, William Pear. Rescue Squad, hello there. Solo, hey, how's it going? Javier Soro, Beverly Carter, good evening. Raging Metroid 12. Were you able to try the Roblox Metroid Prime remake game I'm helping to create that I mentioned in one of your recent videos? I have not seen that, but I'm gonna have to take it out, check it. I have not gotten a chance to play through it yet. Which actually reminds me, there's also the Prime 2D that came out as well.
Download it. I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but I plan on playing it because it looks pretty darn cool. But I'll have to check out this Metroid Prime. I don't play Roblox, so that's kind of the thing, but maybe I could at least see footage of it. Solo Jones added me. Wouldn't it be cool if Nintendo did demos for E3 via cloud streaming? That way everyone can get a taste without the risk of data mining. It'll never happen, but a guy can dream, right? Yeah, a guy can dream.
I remember in like 2015, they had demos you could download for like indie games during E3. That was pretty cool.
From Nintendo?
But it wasn't any of the big stuff. Yeah. I think it was 2015.
I don't remember that, but I'm gonna take your word for it. I guess what we really want are like the bigger games. Like we want to play Breath of the Wild 2, things of that nature. I wonder if there's like a paid... I think there was some debate about if there would be like a paid pass for E3, even though it's like all digital online content. I wouldn't be opposed to having some sort of paid pass if it meant that I had access to different like streamed demos I could play. Like I'd be okay with that. I think that would be pretty great. Sure. And the technology's there, I think, because we already got cloud games on Switch that if you have a stable internet connection, work. So I'm for it. I'm all for that. They would probably have to put a disclaimer to keep in mind this is a cloud stream. This isn't entirely representative of the final game because one, it's a cloud stream, but also because it's an early build of the game. But with those disclaimers, I think it'd be cool to have something like that.
I think it'd be cool. I'm not sure if it's feasible, just because, like, typically if you want to rent out, like, a server for a game, you're renting out, like, one game for an extended period of time, and you're getting, like, better prices because you're paying for years at a time. So for them to be like, hey, we want these, like, a bunch of servers for a bunch of different games, but we only want it for, like, a week, I feel like that's a lot less feasible.
Yeah.
You know
well, here's another idea. I mean, I think we've thrown this idea up before, but what if they just did kind of like a test fire, but for other games? Like, what if there was like it wouldn't be called a test fire, but basically you do download a portion of the game onto your system, but you can't access any of it unless they allow you to do it during a certain period of time online. And
Right.
that's how maybe we could play Breath of the Wild 2, for example, or whatever else.
Yeah,
is there,
they might
like
be able
Metroid
to
or
build
Fire
like
Emblem.
a special demo version of the game that doesn't include the rest. Maybe like, I mean, if they have another like Great Plateau sort of thing that
Yeah.
at the start, they might be able to just only like have that portion actually be the game, and the rest of it's just kind of like uh based off
I just
of
wonder
the
how much
assets, but
work.
not actually.
I wonder how much work that would take
Yeah,
to
that's what I'm
do.
saying. Like, that does seem like a bit of
If
work
it's even
because
worth it.
you
Like,
gotta go through and make sure. I mean, maybe if they just, I don't know.
I feel like
guess,
what's gonna happen is that, well, that's nice, and maybe in the future, like years in the future, maybe Nintendo could start doing things like that. But I feel like the more likely thing to expect is just we're gonna get a direct, and then there'll be a lot of treehouse footage. So we'll watch other people play the game,
I
but
think
we
that's
won't get
what
to
it'll
play
be.
the game. And these people are paid by Nintendo. They're the
Right.
Nintendo treehouse, so they're trained and taught and educated about what to play and what to do and what to talk about. So they don't reveal things that shouldn't be shown off yet.
And I mean, to be fair, if you're not a person in the industry, that's kind of how it was, anyways. You know, like most people, like 99% of people didn't get to play any of those demos.
Yeah, and what's interesting, we've actually seen like a few times during this whole pandemic period where Nintendo has brought on like gaming press or content creators with stronger followings to like watch someone else play the game,
recently.
right? But not actually get to play themselves. So it's interesting how that's been. But considering that, I feel like the best case scenario, and I think it's not even just a best case scenario, it's like the most realistic scenario, is we're going to get a Nintendo Direct, and then it's just going to be a whole bunch of treehouse footage for a couple days, which is basically how most of us have been sort of receiving Nintendo information over the last few years anyway, so I think it'll be fine. But yeah, I would love to have a demo, but you know, it's more of a dream, I would say, at this point.
Yeah.
Birdman, I have defeated Ganondorf's dog in Monster Hunter Rise, the Magnum Malo. That is honestly a pretty good.
Such a cool fight.
Yeah,
Magnum Malo. I love the effects.
I kind of agree with calling him that though. Magnum Malo does kind of feel like Ganondorf's dog, almost. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Magnum Malo is
one of the more fun, cool. Like his moves are so flashy and it's so cool, and the explosions, like it looks so nice. You just feel epic fighting against him.
It's super epic, but like some of the crazy things I like is that it has this tail with like a trident. It's like it has like a trident for a tail, and you think you're fine. All of a sudden, it skewers, not just through you, which it does, but let's say you're like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna hide behind this giant boulder. Straight through the boulder into your chest. OHKO. You are dead in one shot. So it's Magnum Ball is pretty tough.
Hiding.
No, you gotta run away on your dog. Solo added me. No news on Metroid. No news on Metroid. Not yet.
Unfortunately, no.
No, but we'll do a little bit of E3 speculation. I think a lot of you guys probably already got to see my E3 predictions already. I put them out. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I put it out 2 months in advance because I know this is happening. This is what I think is happening. I'm going all in on it. Obviously, things may change over the next couple months, but I do think we're going to see Metroid at E3. So we'll probably touch on that in a few minutes, but no official news to my knowledge. Hello there, Super Chris. Let's see here. Trying to catch up with the chat here. Brandon P. They can at least have someone demo the game like a Treehouse event, but just stream them playing it like it did with the Silk Song. Yeah, something like that I think would be perfect.
I mean, they always got Treehouse for hours and hours, like literally days. So I'm sure they will still.
Yeah, Visible Broken Anatomy. I don't know if you saw it, but E3 already tweeted that it would be entirely free with no paywall for your information. Yeah, I did see that. I was just speculating, like, if there was a way for us to get playable demos, maybe I would be willing to pay. But yeah, I did see that that E3 will be free for all of us to consume and watch.
I mean, it makes sense. If it wasn't, that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, it would be bad. Mackerel Atomy. So, apparently it is rumored a new Microsoft Nintendo collab later this year. What do you think it is? Master Chief and Smash, Game Pass on Switch, Rare Replay Collection, all of it. Well, I mean, I'll say that it is cool to see both Nintendo and Microsoft confirmed for E3 while Sony isn't there. I guess it does kind of make one. I mean,
they weren't there in 2019 either.
Yeah, that didn't mean that there was a huge.
They got their whole show. Like, they have their own E3 later in the year, essentially. So they don't really need to be there.
Yeah. I'll say that I still have some level of hope for a Nintendo Microsoft collaboration. I mean, they've been collaborating, so I'm not saying that's going to stop. Yeah. I don't know if it'll amount to Game Pass. That would be amazing. I bet they've at least had discussions on it.
I think the problem with Game Pass is that most of the games on Game Pass wouldn't work on Switch.
It would have to be like a cloud thing for it to work. But they could have like a customized Nintendo version of Game Pass. Like, that would be neat.
I think next generation, maybe Game Pass might be more viable.
Yeah. Or at least get us Rare Replay. You know, that would be neat.
Yeah, Rare Replay seems like it's something they could definitely do.
It's pretty feasible, because like that came out on what? It's all mostly just
360.
360, so like if it can run on 360, it can
run
on Switch.
As far as everything running, I mean, those are old games.
So
it's more like licensing issues that might get in the way for a few titles.
Maybe. But I would be for that. I mean, I think everyone would be for that. I bet Rare Replay would perform a lot better on Switch than it did on Xbox. So
yeah, I mean, most of those games came from Nintendo.
You tell people they can play Jet Force Gemini and Killer Instinct and Banjo-Kazooie, and all that would be crazy. And if they could add
all those N64 titles, people eat up.
That's the other thing, the potential of a Nintendo version of Rare Replay. So it'd be like a Nintendo edition or a Switch edition that would include like Diddy Kong Racing, for example.
Donkey Kong 64.
Exactly. Like that would be. It would all of a sudden become like the quintessential Rare Replay, right? The definitive edition of Rare Replay. Maybe they have that. Maybe it's like a Rare Replay definitive edition or Rare Replay Deluxe. It's like specifically for the Switch. That would be crazy.
I think that's one of those things that just makes sense for Microsoft to put on Nintendo, because it's just gonna sell better.
It would just it would do really, really well. But you know, we'll see what happens, because at the end of the day, Microsoft does own it. So they're not going to bring everything onto Switch. There are some things that make sense for them, some things that don't.
Yep.
But let's what should we start with, Brandon? Should we start with the Nintendo for E3 stuff, the Fire Emblem rumors, or the Switch 4K stuff? Either one's fine with me.
Let's start with some of the smaller stuff, like maybe the Fire Emblem stuff.
Okay, let's start with Fire Emblem.
I think the E3 predictions and things that might get pretty long.
Okay, you're right. So the order will be Fire Emblem rumors, Switch 4K hints, then Nintendo E3 stuff. Especially because I feel like the Fire Emblem rumors and the Switch 4K stuff sort of are details that are relevant for the E3 discussion. So so the basic idea behind these remakes is the same person who leaked a whole bunch of information on Reddit a while ago for Fire Emblem Three Houses, a game that came out in 2019, has apparently leaked that there will be a remake of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. So that's what's been suggested here, or at least they're hinting at that. So there's some room for interpretation there. But the other interesting thing that makes me a little skeptical, I mean, granted, it's a post on Reddit that got a lot of things right about Three Houses, so you know, it could be maybe taken from somewhere else or something, or maybe it was just a lucky guess. But the other thing that kind of gets me a little skeptical here is that apparently this remake for Path of Radiant and Radiant Dawn was supposed to come out in 2020, last year. Now, I'm not saying it would have been impossible, but let me kind of just go over like the release years for Fire Emblem games, and you tell me if this seems to sort of add up. Now, I'm not going to talk about the remakes, the games in the 90s. I'm going to kind of skip to like the more recent ones.
Yeah, modern. After the 3DS game, I forget the name. The Awakening. After Awakening, everything changed. So
everything did change, but I'll start with the early 2000s. So yeah. So on the Game Boy Advance, there is Fire Emblem Binding Blade, came out March 2002 in Japan, but that was Japan only. But then there was a Fire Emblem that came out on Game Boy Advance in 2003, and then Sacred Stones, that was my first Fire Emblem game. It came out in Japan in 2004, and then the state, and then everywhere else in 2005. Then Path of Radiance for the GameCube came out across the board in 2005. That was Path of Radiance. That's one of the alleged remakes. And then 2 years later, in 2007, we saw the release for Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn on the Wii. So a 2-year interval there. And then we saw a little bit of a hiatus for Fire Emblem until the Awakening. Fire Emblem Awakening on 3DS, which came out between 2012 and 2013, depending on if you're in Japan or not.
Such an apt name for that game.
Yeah, it was perfect because it was an awakening for the series. But then after that, 3 years later, at least if we go by Japan release dates, we got Fire Emblem Fates, which was Fire Emblem Fates. And then in 2017, I want to say, I did skip a couple remakes there, but the important one is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia came out in 2017, so 2 years after Awakening, or
there were some small remakes, but nothing.
I'm fumbling my words here. 2 years after Fire Emblem Fates, because Fates came out in 2015. 2 years after Fates, we got the remake, Echoes Shadows of Valencia, but then 2 years after that, we got Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Nintendo Switch. So the point I'm ultimately getting at here, I realize it was long-winded, is that in the current era of Fire Emblem, we're looking at 3 to 2 year windows between Fire Emblem games. So given that we just got Three Houses, the first HD Fire Emblem game, there's a 100+ hour game for a lot of people, that came out mid-2019. So the rumor is suggesting that we were going to get a few Fire Emblem remakes a year later, maybe a year and a few months later. That's where I'm a little skeptical of that. This year, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense to expect a Fire Emblem remake in 2021. A remake is easier to get done, to have it completed. 2 year interval.
They've been on this 2 year cycle for a bit.
Right. So that's what I've been expecting. But the fact that the rumor's saying they were supposed to come out last year, I'm not sure. Like, that just seems like a bit of a short window. Maybe they wanted to reveal it last year, and they weren't quite ready to reveal it, so they pushed it up a little bit. Maybe it was going to be more of an early year game, and now it's going to be more of a later year game. Maybe that's a possibility. So, of course, with these rumors and then speculation, things of that nature, there is a degree of sort of flexibility to what the dates are and such. So I could kind of see that. But then I guess the other question is, which one are we getting? Are we getting the GameCube one, the Wii one? Are we getting both? Are they coming as a pack? Either we're getting one, then the other later on?
Like, I feel like just from the names alone, they kind of work into each other.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they're both gonna come in the same thing. Like, maybe they're kind of like can be one full game. I don't really know that much, but just going off the names, they're so similar. I feel like they gotta be like directly intertwined, so maybe it just works for one package.
Right. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's what they're doing, just kind of combining two together. Maybe it's meant to be sort of like an anniversary thing. Maybe initially they had bigger plans for Fire Emblem's anniversary.
True,
and they had to push that
was
up.
Their 35th anniversary last year, right?
Right. So it could be, maybe we were going to get kind of like a 3D All-Star sort of thing, but for Fire Emblem. But of course, remake suggests more than a remaster, so I would hope something more than that, right? Obviously, we won't know until it's confirmed. But either way, though, simply based off the rate of releases for Fire Emblem, I am expecting an announcement for a Fire Emblem game before the end of the year. That's my expectation.
I would expect, by the way, that it would be a remake, just because they remade their Echoes was like a full reimagining. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a full ground up new engine remake, maybe even a sort of reimagining a bit. Maybe they even work. I don't know how the stories work. Maybe they work them both into like it's one full one experience.
Yeah, I didn't play those, so I can't really speak on that.
Yeah.
They do
sure.
the naming is similar though, so I do wonder if there's a connection there. Either way, I've been sort of expecting like some sort of remake based off the Three Houses engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe an improved version of that engine. They got a bit more time to work on it, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm curious if it's like who handles the remakes. Typically, like, is it the same studio? Is it like Pokemon
question.
where they have like sub studios, but it's still under like Game Freak?
That's a good question. I'm honestly, I don't know. If someone in the chat knows, feel free to put that out there. I mean, I know Intelligent System works on Fire Emblem, but do they make more than do they have? I mean, they may have several teams. They're probably working on more than one thing at once.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if they're coming out with a game every 2 years.
I'm actually trying to look up their, the list of games that they've made and come out with over the years. So, like, they also worked on Fire Emblem Heroes, right, which is the mobile game. And also
good.
WarioWare Gold came out in 2018, and Paper Mario just came out. So they are working on multiple projects at once.
Yeah, that's Intelligent Systems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
they work on a bunch.
So
of stuff.
they for sure have multiple teams, but they're probably not all working on Fire Emblem though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're a pretty big studio.
Yeah.
They've been working on Mario spin-offs for a bit too. So.
Yeah. Let me check in with the chat here, see what you guys have to say. Josh Coleman added me. I just finished Xenoblade Chronicles on my spring break and played it for just over 30 hours in 1 week. I've had the game since it came out and gave up after the first Mallows fight.
You beat Wait, he beat the second game in 30 hours? How? This is hell of a speed run. I think it took like 60 hours, and I barely did any side quest or anything.
That's pretty quick.
Like, I just blasted through the story. Like, dang, son, if you beat that in 30 hours.
Yeah, so Solid just gave us. That's what I thought, but I'm glad Solid just sort of confirmed it because I haven't played them. But Solid is saying in the chat that Radiant Dawn is a direct sequel to Path of Radiance, which makes sense because I feel like it looks
maybe
like the same character
worked them
stuff,
into like
right?
one game.
It looks like Ike in the concept art. I haven't played them, so don't hold me to this if I'm wrong. Because I haven't played them, but that looks like Ike. So, I mean, it would make sense because Ike was added to Brawl, right? And that's what it looks like there. But
I don't know.
Either way, though, the fact that they're connected, I could conceivably see them like as two pieces into one package, for sure. Nishant Kelker added me. Have you heard of the rumors from Game Over Jesse and Nintendo Prime Buddy Zelda 35 Direct this month? What are your thoughts? My thoughts are skepticism.
Why?
Because one, I looked into that. I saw that. I saw the tweet from Game Over Jesse, and it wasn't specifying anything in particular, so I'm not sure who's referring to. And I've checked his channel, and I've seen some of his videos, and there wasn't anything very clear cut to me in terms of when we're getting a Zelda Anniversary Direct. Now, I may not have seen all the details from him, but if we get a Zelda 35th Anniversary Direct in April, hey, I'm not complaining. I'd love that. I'd be so okay with that, but I don't really believe that's happening. Again, I will be super happy to be wrong, but I just think that E3 is a time for it to be happening. Nintendo's already sort of drilling a pipe for that already, so that's kind of the other thing. I don't think. Think of it like this: we are officially, we are 8 weeks and a couple days away from the E3 blowout. Okay.
Dang.
So that's not that long from now. Hypothetically speaking, let's say within the next couple weeks we get a Zelda Anniversary Direct and they show off a whole bunch of things, including Breath of the Wild 2. They can do that. They can get away with that. But then they're going to have a Direct just like 6 weeks after that, after a big Zelda Anniversary thing. That's where I'm just not sure that's going to happen, especially because new Pokemon Snap's coming out at the end of the month. They're going to want to hype that up. Miitopia's coming out in May. They're going to hype that up as well. I'm not sure they're going to do that. They could. There's obviously plenty of things they could talk about. But Zelda is something that kind of makes it a show off at E3. Like a big venue like that. People are going to want to see gameplay for it. I feel like it would just be kind of strange for Nintendo to all of a sudden have a Zelda Anniversary Direct in April when they kind of skipped it in February.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's kind of my thinking. Like, think of it this way. Like, what would be the point of doing it now? Because you can't show Breath of the Wild. You gotta save that for E3. Because, like, I'm sure the second half of the 2021 will be pretty good. But let's be honest, Breath of the Wild, if it does come out this year, is gonna be the biggest game by far. Yeah. So that's the one they're gonna show off the most at E3. So you're saying you're taking away part of that E3, part of that, that 2021 confirmation, because if you're gonna show Breath of the Wild off in a Zelda Direct, like, what the biggest thing they're gonna do is show the release date, because they don't have that much time. There's no time for a blowout. E3's coming soon, so they're gonna show the release date. Well, that's a big thing that you're taking away from E3. And then I honestly don't think they're gonna have like as much small little things that Mario had in that 35th Anniversary Direct, because they're gonna have big things. Mario didn't have a brand new big game, so they had to have a bunch of other small things. Zelda's gonna have Skyward Sword HD, and it's gonna have Breath of the Wild too. Like, what? They don't need a bunch of other small things. They might have like one or two things, but not enough for a Direct. Especially if you're not gonna blow up Breath of the Wild. Like, what are they gonna have, a 5 to 7 minute Direct? Like, that'd be a waste of time.
Yeah. I think you raise a good point. And we're pretty much exactly on the same page. Like, another thing to consider is that last year Nintendo didn't have a lot of like new games, so they kind of had to support it with a lot of smaller Mario releases. While this year, from at least what we understand, there's going to be a lot of actual games coming out this year.
Yeah, it's going to be more of a normal year.
So why are you going to just sort of bloat that with a whole bunch of old Zelda games? I think they're going to spread out Zelda a little bit more, because one, Zelda games in general are also longer. It's not as digestible as Mario. So I think it just makes sense to kind of space that out in general. Plus, Nintendo has a plan to release Zelda annually, have something every single year. So for that other reason, they're going to want to kind of, pace themselves with that.
Yeah. So I think they're going to focus on more like remakes of other games.
Yeah.
If they got that Link's Awakening remake, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with like Oracle remakes.
That'd be really nice to see. Maybe next year.
Maybe a Minish Cap remake or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe even a brand new 2D Zelda. I think there's less of a need for them to release just the classic versions of those older Zelda games. I just don't think there's as big of a reason to. I think there's more potential in them remaking them and stuff than them just throwing them on the eShop for no reason.
I still think they're gonna have Zelda 35th anniversary celebrations. My prediction is that it's still gonna be a big part of the E3 Direct. It's just not gonna be the only thing of the Direct. It's gonna be kind of like how they handled Smash in 2018, where the first half was all the other stuff, then Smash. This time around, I think it's gonna be all the other Nintendo stuff at first, and then Zelda at the end.
I think that's exactly what they're gonna do, because as soon as you show Breath of the Wild off, ain't nobody... There's nothing else gonna top that, so you gotta save it for last.
Right.
Because everything after that's just gonna be lesser.
Another thing to consider is that the pandemic occurred. Like, the Mario 35th Anniversary Direct may have only happened because of the pandemic. It may initially have just been meant
They've
as
never
a
done
big
an
part
anniversary
of the
direct
E3
before.
plan.
That's not a normal thing.
It's unique.
That was one thing that I understand why people were expecting a Zelda 35th Anniversary Direct, because they've never done that before. Like, they literally only did that for Mario 35th Anniversary. They've never done an Anniversary Direct before. Ever.
Yeah, well, I think part of the reason why people sort of bought into that thinking is because if we go back to last year, or even a couple months ago, there is a lot of people that were buying to the idea that in general Nintendo Directs were just gone. So I think a lot of people were sort of thinking that maybe Nintendo just going to sort of specialize more often. And, maybe that could still happen to some extent, but I really do feel like the Mario 35th Anniversary Direct overall happened in the way it did, mostly because of the pandemic.
Yep. And we're seeing things already going back to normal. We're getting normal directs, we're getting an actual E3, so...
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo said it, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but, you know, I think expect the big news for E3, and if we get something this month, be surprised about it. That's my expectation. So, but we'll see. Let's see here. Mackerel added me. I would love Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Switch Online with Game Boy Fire Emblems on it. That would be awesome. I would. Cool. I'm not opposed to getting Game Boy games on Nintendo Online. Yeah. Obviously, I want N64, but I think there's a lot of good games there to also be had.
I just never owned a Game Boy, so I'm not a huge Game Boy fan. But you know, I don't know. It's also like the Game Boy is like the NES of the handheld era. Like it had. I think games,
they should bunch all the Game Boy together, like Game Boy, Game Boy Color Advance, all as part of one library. Just like
Game Boy Color and Advance was when it really started holding up a lot more. And I mean, it's the same like NES versus SNES. SNES games hold way better than NES games. It's just a fact. Like, there are definitely some gems in the NES, you know, the original Mario Brothers, the original Zelda that hold up. But there's also a lot of games that don't hold up nearly as well. So I think it's the same with the Game Boy. You can't just... People are going to be disappointed if they just throw out Game Boy. But I'm sure that's what they probably will do.
So. We'll see. Let's see here. I didn't get all of Josh Coleman's comment here, but I see the end of it so darn much. This game has quickly become one of my favorite games on Switch. I think you've convinced me to play the game. Just started Xenoblade Chronicles Definition, so wish me luck. Good luck, my friend.
Yeah, I think they clarified earlier that it took them 80 hours, that they did 30 hours in a week. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Nice.
I was so confused how they beat that game in 30 hours.
Yeah. Raging Metroid 12 added me. Do you know where I can send the video once I make it? You could just you can at me on Twitter. That's a possibility. And then I'll check it out for sure. Or you can send me a message, one or the other. My DMs are open, guys. I may not always get to them because, you know, I do a whole bunch of stuff, but I try and get to them.
We're on Discord, we're on Twitter.
Yep, Discord is also an option. You can send it to me on Discord or you can send it to me on Twitter. And my social media is linked in the description below. Mackerel. Have you heard of the artist Ormeal? I hope I pronounced that correctly. He does wonderful lint art. I wonder if Nintendo redid Blazing Blade Remake, it has to be due to the character art. Maybe? Let's see here. Molduga added me. I mean, we have some games that need more info, like Age of Calamity's purchase bonus in May, Mario Golf June, Miitopia in May. I could see a mini or an Age of Calamity could just get a trailer drop. So I was under the impression Age of Calamity Wave 1's actually due out in June, which is E3 time. So my perspective has always been that we're going to get like a direct. They're going to talk about the Zelda stuff. They'll talk about, have another update on Skyward Sword HD. Maybe announce a couple things for the eShop. They'll announce some merchandising stuff. And they'll also have a trailer for the Age of Calamity DLC, a quick one. And they'll be like, oh, Wave 1, available now. You can download it after the direct. Like, that's kind of like what I've sort of been thinking would be how they handle it. I'm pretty sure it's for June.
They haven't really shown like anything of the specifics of what's in any of the packs. So,
June 21. Yeah. So that's E3 time. I feel like it lines up perfectly, which is more evidence to, I think, if you think about that, right? Like, I feel like it's more evidence to the idea that we're getting Zelda news in June as opposed to April, because we're already seeing things lining up to sort of happen then already, like with the DLC.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. When we saw the Breath of the Wild DLC, we got that shadow drop, so...
Yeah.
The second wave, we saw that at the Game Awards. It was shadow drop, the same day or next day or something like that?
Especially because they didn't actually show us footage of the Age of Calamity DLC. Like, to me, it just makes sense.
They didn't even tell us what it was.
No, I feel like they're definitely going to have something that's like a Zelda-focused presentation. I think it's going to happen at E3. And there they'll show us a little trailer, and then they'll shadow drop that, talk about Skyward Sword, couple of Zelda remasters, then Breath of the Wild 2, but we'll save that for a little bit later.
Might even be something that ties into Breath of the Wild 2, and that's why they're not talking about it.
Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe.
I don't know, man. They can tie in anything they want. In
they
these
could.
Warrior games. So.
They could. I just feel like they're not gonna. I feel like they're not gonna show off Breath of the Wild 2 first, and then be like AOC DLC. If anything, I think Wave 2 could have Breath of the Wild 2 stuff, but Wave 1 won't.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. PaintFat Purple added me. Nintendo needs a real game for May. What do you mean? Miitopia's a game. I'm not interested in it, but it's a game.
They don't. I mean, it's the first half of the year. They don't have games come out every month, ever, in years. So.
Monster Hunter Rise is going to be getting continual updates. We'll have new Pokemon Snap. We still have 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Bravely Default 2. Like, I feel like the beginning of this year, in comparison to the beginning of other years, is really strong, actually. So, you know, I think it's fine.
I think every year, people in the first half of the year, they forget that the first half of the year is slow compared to the second half of the year, guys. Like,
it's pretty consistent. It happens every year. So,
people are surprised every year.
Yeah, but maybe just use May as a time to save up money for the rest of the year, because it's going to be a lot more dense with content, I would say.
Yeah.
Mackerel.
I gotta get you those pre-order money for June.
Yeah. If there's a new Donkey Kong, I hope they call it New Donkey Kong Nation. That would be funny, especially if they have like Donkey Kong Nation, but they have like a new like DK rap thrown in there too. That'd be
yeah. That sounds like a rap.
Yeah.
Such a rap
DK
thing,
Nation.
Dude.
Yeah.
DK Nation.
It would be cool.
Up in here.
It would be funny. Daniel's Hot Topics added me. Do you think we may get a new Star Fox game? 2023 will be the 30th anniversary of Star Fox, so maybe then. What is it with Metroid and Star Fox? They are not as popular as Mario or Zelda.
Well, they haven't made a good Star Fox game in over a decade, so that's why.
Well,
like that's just that simple for Star Fox.
Yeah.
As far as Metroid goes,
Well, I think it's important to note that Mario, Zelda, and Metroid were all sort of connected because they all had the starts around the same time. The design philosophy sort of translated between each other. So like the thinking was like, I think for example, like Donkey Kong was named after the villain. Zelda was named after the princess you save. Metroid was named after the thing you're hunting down. So, not even necessarily the antagonist, like just what you're hunting down. So it was kind of interesting how they had those three different like single player adventure games back on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they went for like an unconventional naming system for them. And then also the way they sort of thought about them in terms of gameplay, like there was Donkey Kong, and then everything was sort of they were sort of connected. At the point Mario and Zelda thrived, Metroid did not.
Right.
But I think the reason why Nintendo... Yeah, go on.
My personal theory why Metroid hasn't done as well as the other ones is the original concept for Metroid is a lot more niche. Like, there's a lot of backtracking, it's a lot more complicated, you really gotta go... It's a lot less casual, you really gotta go hardcore in depth in those games in order to figure things out. Like, it's like... The original Zelda is a lot more like complex and like it doesn't tell you things, but even it compared to like Metroid is a lot easier to get into and understand. And then you have the Prime series, which is maybe a bit more mainstream, but it's literally never been on a good selling console. Like the GameCube was a failure, the Wii was too casual for it to sell well, and the Wii U was a failure and didn't even get anything. So they've literally never sold a Metroid Prime game on a console that actually would sell that game well. They never have, so there's just never been potential. Like the GameCube, as I said, GameCube failed, Wii was too casual, and Wii U just didn't get anything.
Yeah,
so.
The Switch is the best platform for Metroid to succeed.
They haven't had a hardcore platform that sold well.
Yeah, I mean,
the Metroid Prime game. It just hasn't existed yet.
Well, that's kind of why like I see the Switch as potentially like the best Nintendo system of all time. Because, at least in terms of like sales potential for Nintendo software, because it's a system where, like as you said, Brandon, it's a lot of hardcore gamers or core gamers or just gamers instead of people who just, play 1 or 2 games in 10 years. Like, there are people who play games several times a year. These are people who buy the cool games, right? The Zeldas, the Marios, the Metroids. So, you put a good Metroid game on the system, it's going to get a lot of sales. It's going to do really well. And I think Nintendo's being very careful about how they reintroduce Metroid to the world, because once they do, they have a huge opportunity to establish a far larger audience, and then maybe Metroid can get closer to being like Mario or Zelda. So we will start to see more consistent Metroid sales.
We're not there yet. Metroid Prime sold terribly.
Which one?
I mean,
Metroid Prime did fine for what it was. It was like 10% of all GameCube owners had Metroid Prime. If you compare
it to like Xenoblade, it's not bad.
Yeah, just in terms of percentages of how many people had the system versus how many people played the game and owned it, for sure. Star Fox, to Brandon's point, they haven't made a good Star Fox game. They just haven't.
They haven't made a good Star Fox game since literally N64.
Yeah. But I think, there's good stuff is coming.
Assault was okay.
Yeah. I do want to see Nintendo bring out a franchise that they haven't been using lately that can perform really well. Like, reboot Kid Icarus. We know they're going to reboot Metroid.
So much potential.
Yeah, but Kid Icarus has so much potential. F-Zero, Wave Race, those have options. The Earthbound series, even though I know that the writer for the series wouldn't want to make another one, but they have...
Get a new writer!
Maybe. There are franchises that they could go back to and sort of make work again.
Earthbound is legitimately one of the best games ever made.
It's incredible. So yeah, I would love to see some sort of remaster or remake. I want a remake.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I know
they could do so much with that art style.
Yeah. But if we want to just talk about what we know Nintendo is trying to sort of reboot Metroid, they have multiple Metroid games in development, and then there's Pikmin. They're coming out with the Pikmin mobile game later this year. They had Pikmin 3 Deluxe last year. Supposedly Pikmin 4 has been in development. So I feel like Nintendo has a plan for at least Pikmin and Metroid. Hopefully they have a plan for others. And we've talked about Donkey Kong as well. So I do think Donkey Kong probably is going to get rebooted soon. We'll see. When I say rebooted, I just mean giving us a brand new entry into this series, and because it's been so many years since the last one,
7 years,
and since there's so many new gamers now, especially who have a Switch, that's a huge opportunity for them to create a whole new following, or a far larger following, which kind of goes back to my Metroid point. Nintendo has an opportunity here to reboot several franchises and establish a far larger audience for these other series beyond just Mario and Zelda and Splatoon and Animal Crossing. So,
Yeah.
Let's see here. I think let's a couple other questions and we'll move on. Now, Ronnie Fazio added me, what are your thoughts on Crash 4? I'm personally really enjoying it. I would love for more platforms to come from other companies. I haven't played it yet, so I can't give you much of an opinion on it.
Crash game since the PS2.
Yeah. Although there was a sale for Crash on the Switch eShop. I ended up picking up Doom Eternal and Ori, actually, so I gave Microsoft some more money, but I'll have to circle back to Crash soon.
On the PS2, so I have no clue. It looks cool. I think the art style is cool. The level concepts that I've seen are cool. So I don't know. I probably wouldn't play on Switch because I think it's a 30 FPS game on Switch, and platformers I really want to be at 60. But I don't know.
That doesn't bother me that much. Sometimes I just like having it portable. Daniel's Hot Topics. The GameCube failed? I thought it was the best Nintendo console. Well, you see.
Not in terms of sales.
But both are
utter
true.
Failure.
Both can be true, though.
Yeah.
In terms of sales numbers, GameCube sold about 20 million. Even the original Xbox outsold the GameCube eventually. At around 21 million, if I remember correctly, give or take a million. That's about right. So it was.
The original Xbox even made more than that.
It might be 22, 23, but the point is that Xbox just edged out GameCube. PS2 had well over 100 million. It was insane. I think even closer to 150 or something. I don't know, some insane number like that. But point is, Sony dominated that generation. They came out like a year and a half, 2 years before the other systems. They had a DVD player, so it played games, and it was the cheapest DVD player.
They were
one of the
riding off
first
the success
and one of
of
the
the
cheapest
PS1
DVD
too.
players on the market. DVDs were how you watched movies back in the day. There was no Netflix. There was no Blu-ray. There was no YouTube.
You had VHS or you had DVDs.
That's
and that was it.
Yeah, so...
And VHS sucked.
Right, so because of that
so bad.
DVD player, Sony did really well. On top of that, they had a lot of third-party partners. So they had a lot of software. They had competitive pricing. And they were out early in the market. Dreamcast was annihilated. And then Xbox... by the time Xbox and GameCube came to the market, Dreamcast was already dead. Dreamcast was supposed to be a part of the same generation. That was the last Sega system. But anyways, Nintendo, GameCube, like Nintendo had compelling software, but their marketing was shit. Like Nintendo
they made a
really
lot
to
of
learn.
bad design choices too with the game.
Yeah.
Like those small discs really hurt them. Same issue that the N64 with bad storage media.
Yeah.
Like why did you make the same mistake 2 generations in a row? How did you mess up that badly?
Yeah, I also know some people might give me pushback on Nintendo's marketing with the GameCube because there were some edgy things they did, but I think it was kind of like too little too late because the way the GameCube was presented as a whole, like people just saw it as this kiddie cube system, and it didn't have online. It suffered some similar issues as the N64 where you couldn't put as much storage on those smaller discs. While it did enable far faster loading than the other systems, which I thought was amazing, it scared away a lot of third-party companies. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, they couldn't fit their games on those things. They didn't hold as much. They held like less than half of the same capacity as a normal disc. But
the games that were on GameCube were amazing. Some of the best games that generation were on GameCube. I would argue
Mario, Thousand Year Door,
Resident Evil 4,
Wind Waker, Twilight Princess,
Rogue Squadron.
Oh yeah, Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, Eternal Darkness.
Yeah.
We got 2 pretty good Zeldas, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, Mario Sunshine.
Pretty good Zeldas.
Pikmin
Those
1
are
and
some
2,
of the best.
Metroid Prime 1 and 2. There was Bat and Kaitos 1 and 2. There's a Fire Emblem game there. Pokemon Gale of Darkness, Pokemon Coliseum.
Yeah.
The best racing game of all time, F-Zero, Wave Race Blue Storm, Smash Bros. Melee.
Mario Kart Double Dash, which I never played, but apparently it's like one of the best
amazing.
ones.
Did I already mention Pikmin? Like,
Pikmin. They had 2 Pikmin games on there.
2 Pikmin games, yeah.
Luigi's Mansion.
Oh! Yeah. We're just scratching the surface. There was multiple Resident Evil games, I should say, on there. Not just Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 0, all really good Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
There was some pretty good third-party games on there.
Super Monkey Ball in the comments.
Yeah. There was, I want to say, Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure 2 was on there.
Sonic the Hedgehog. They had Shadow the Hedgehog on the GameCube. Mm-hmm. That game was interesting.
There was a lot of games. Beyond Good and Evil. There's a lot of good stuff on there, man. It's incredible lineup, and we haven't even mentioned, like, there's others. We're missing a whole bunch, but the GameCube is Chibi Robo. There's another, Cubivore, Odama. There is some games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, did the Battalion Wars come out on GameCube or Wii? I think it was GameCube. Yeah, Battalion Wars, which is like a 3D Advanced Wars. Yeah,
it's part of the War series, which Nintendo needs to revive too.
Yeah. I see I have a super chat here from Taker610. Thank you very much. Taker says, rename E3 to Big Summer Blowout. There you go. Big Summer Blowout. So
the best quote, the only quote from Frozen that I actually allow people to say.
I'm looking at the chat here. I'm seeing other good name drops. There is Metal Gear Twin Snakes. Great point. Skies of Arcadia, Tales of Symphonia. There was a lot of really, really good games. Absolutely.
Birdman's talking about a Burger King game.
The Burger King game, the best of all the games. Yeah.
10 out of 10. It has 100 on Metacritic. It's a nice reviewed game, above Ocarina of Time.
Oh man, Funky Kitty brought up one. Donkey Konga, the greatest video game ever. And I think there was also Donkey Kong Konga 2, and there was also Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Like and you could play that.
Jungle Beat was for the Wii.
Wrong. It was for the GameCube. That was a team that eventually made Mario Galaxy. Yeah, it was super good because you could like it was a side scroller, right? But it had like the cool like fur like graphics that were kind of weird back then, and you could like box out other primates, which is pretty pretty sick.
Transparency fur shaders.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was amazing. So there are rumors that the Mario Odyssey team is working on a new Donkey Kong game. So it kind of brings it back to Jungle Beat because that was back when the Mario team worked on Donkey Kong. So I don't know, man. It might be really cool to see that. It would be really, really cool. But let's transition to the next next topic here, which is about the Switch data mine, because we've been in the chat for a little bit. We'll circle back to Fire Emblem when we talk about E3 for a little while. But so I basically talked about it at the beginning, but basically with this new firmware update, the 12.0 update, there's a couple things that have sort of surfaced through data mines. One is some sort of, I have it pulled up here somewhere. There is like, I'm just gonna kind of screenshot this for you or show you a couple articles pulled up. So here, Oatmeal Dome was showing like actual like information there. Is CRDA FW update supported? CRDA Cradle Dog for Aula. Aula is the code name for the new Switch model. So people are, yeah, Aula is the rumored name. AULA.
Okay.
So the rumor has been for a little while that Aula is the code name for the Switch revision.
I see it now.
And here we see like information within, I went to the actual Twitter, excuse me. We see actual information that's perhaps suggesting within the data mine that there is some sort of, update coming here. Maybe. Let's see, I have another one over here, and this one's for the Bluetooth support. They actually added audio support to the Bluetooth driver as well. So there's two different interesting things here, right? There's information that shows that there's a dock that can get updated that might have an acronym that sort of leads us back to a rumor about codename Aula for the Switch revision. And then there's also one adding Bluetooth audio support. Two things that would make a lot of sense for a Switch Pro or Switch Plus kind of system. So imagine we get this rumored 4K Switch. It has a bigger screen. It has better battery life. It perhaps is slightly more ergonomic. It feels a little better in the hands. And when you dock it, it can run in 4K thanks to DLSS 2.0 on this special dock that perhaps will add a little bit of additional computing power, hence why it needs to be updated, which is what this firmware data mine is suggesting. But then also, this Switch has support for Bluetooth audio. And maybe that's something they could update even on the base Switch as well, but they'll start releasing controllers that maybe you can sort of pair with that, or you could actually attach it to like your base Switch and have the headset separated from that. Something like that they can maybe do. Point is, these are enhancements that are being hinted at by the firmware from the data mine, which seems to be even more smoke to this massive blaze that is for Switch 4K coming out potentially later this year.
This is definitely interesting because obviously this has to be referencing something that's not the market.
Yeah.
Because there's literally no way to update the dock because there's nothing in the dock that could be updated. It's literally impossible. It is physically impossible to do that. There is no way. So it has to be 100% without a doubt referencing something that is not available. So right there, that indicates that they're at least working on a Switch Pro. Whether or not it will come out this year, this doesn't obviously confirm that or not, but they have to be working on something. That is 100% confirmed, assuming that this is, a legitimate data mine and this is legitimate findings and things like that, Assuming everything is how it seems, that is 100% how it has to be, because the dock that we have right now, it's literally impossible that this could have anything to do with it.
How certain
So
are we of
that for
though?
me,
Like, how certain are we of that there isn't something in there?
100%.
100%?
It's literally, yeah.
Okay.
Literally, the only thing in the Switch are USBs and HDMIs and power outlets. They literally cannot be updated because you have to have a CPU controller for that. So it literally is impossible. That would mean that the HDMIs and USBs on the Switch have its own CPU, its own storage, and its own firmware, which is literally not true. So 100%, without a doubt, it wouldn't happen. So if this is how it is, then yeah, it has to be referencing something else. A dock that has its own components that can be updated separately. And this kind of goes with what I show. And if you pull it back up, it does mention Mariko specifically, which is the chip that is in the Switch now. It doesn't mean that it's the exact same chip. It just means that it's at least based off of that same process as the same chip.
I'll show you guys. Yeah, there it is. Mariko. Yep.
Which means that this dock has to work with a Mariko chip. Now, all that means is that it's based off of the same process as the Mariko, which essentially means it's based off of an X2. And to me, this makes sense. So my theory about how the Switch Pro may work, especially with the data mines, because, we've been saying for a while a big reason why we think a Switch Pro might come out is because we've seen those data mines for new chips being, in the firmware, right? And those were always Mariko chips. Now, that didn't make sense to me, because if they're going to use a Mariko chip, those aren't compatible with things natively, with things like DLSS or any of their new features. It's all based off older hardware. It doesn't have the deep learning things in it, so it can't do those. You could add it potentially to it, but as it is now, it wouldn't work. And there was no reason to believe in the firmware that they had done that. So my current thinking, especially with the dock having its own firmware, would mean that it has its own CPU, maybe even its own GPU in the dock itself. So essentially what you're doing is that's how you're getting the DLSS. That's how you're getting all these new features, is it connects up to the dock and they work kind of simultaneously together. And it kind of makes sense because the dock does use USB-C, which is the same port that they use for their high-end PC, what's called SLI, which is when you link two GPUs together to work in tandem.
Okay.
That uses USB-C now. That's actually their official way of doing it. It's works better than what they had before.
Let me throw something at you. So, I'm going to revisit the long speculated supplemental computing device. We're talking about patents from before the Switch was even a thing.
Yeah.
So, what if, these patents are amounting to what this is? But I guess the question then is, are we going to get a revised Switch that comes packaged with this enhanced dock? And if that happens, is that also possible that we have an enhanced dock that we can simply put our base Switch into?
I don't think so, simply because they would need to set up the custom Mariko chip to work as an SLI chip. That's not something that can just be done. You have to set that up. So it would have to be its own custom version of the Mariko chip that works in tandem, that's set up to run that way.
What if they had two releases?
I don't believe
they
that they could just use the original version.
Improved Switch that it functions with this dock, but they also make another special version of the dock that's perhaps a little bit more expensive, but not as expensive as a full-on new Switch that is for people who have the base Switch, so they can still have 4K visuals without having to buy a whole new system. What is it possible to have both? The docks would be different.
I don't know if that'd be possible.
I don't know either.
Because the problem isn't with the dock. The problem's with
the Switch itself.
The Switch, yeah, the base Switch, and how it works.
Because it's not even.
Also, I don't know if that USB-C is rated for that type of connectivity. Because I just don't know.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of factors to it. Like, if they planned ahead, maybe, but I don't think so. And especially not, I don't know if it would work with the original Switch 2, just because that's not even the Americo version. That's a completely different process on a completely different chip. So, I imagine that there's some level of custom stuff that they would have to do to this chip to even get it to SLI in the first place. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I can't say other way.
I think probably not. Like, it would be neat if there was a dock that could allow the Switch to play games at 4K, but I feel like it just makes more sense to think Nintendo would just release. There will be a better dock, but it'll just be compatible with this 4K Switch. But we'll see, you know. Nintendo could come up with some crazy things. They do have that pad. Maybe they thought about this way ahead of time. We don't know for sure, but I would definitely side on probably you'll have to get a whole new Switch in order to get the 4K functionality.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I got another super chat here from Taker610. It'd be weird if the codename was spelled Allah. Yeah.
Yes, so?
Yeah. Birdman Anatomy. I would think that this update would be on the Switch Pro when it comes out, just like the Switch Lite with what I think was 10.0 back in 2019. Yeah, I mean, we have seen some updates line up for the Switch Lite and such, so, you know, there's definitely some precedence there.
It doesn't do anything on the base Switch, so that's for sure.
Yeah. We've talked about Switch rumors every week. It's not like, you know,
This is exciting for me though, because this is the first indication from an actual official Nintendo firmware that has me thinking that it would be for a Switch Pro, because with the other chips that were in it, as I said before, like, I didn't really feel like that they made sense for a Pro. Like, they were new chips, sure, and obviously they seem to be for some sort of revision, but honestly, the way those chips were described in the firmware, they could have just been another silent revision, like the better battery life Switch.
Maybe so.
You know?
Maybe so.
So
if we go back to, how long ago was it? Like the beginning of 2020?
Year and a half, I think.
Where there was, we saw some preliminary support for a couple revisions after the Switch Lite. But yeah, from that, there wasn't enough indication to say, oh, that's for a 4K device, right?
Yeah, it didn't really seem like something that would be that much more powerful. But we also didn't see the exact specs, so like, it was hard to say at the time.
Yeah, I think the other thing to know, and you mentioned it earlier, this doesn't necessarily indicate when it's coming out. Like, it could still not make it out for this year. We actually did see a report that said that I think that there could be some Switch shortages later in the year as well, so that's something else to consider. For sure. I feel like, simply based off what Bloomberg has been saying though, like, I'm just gonna believe what they're saying, that the Switch Pro is coming out this year. So
I'm curious if the reason there might be shortages is because they're coming out with a Switch Pro. Maybe.
Actually, let me see if I can pull up that article real quick, because, you know, that there could be something pretty interesting there.
I think the article, essentially was them saying they had secured the semiconductors that they needed, but in the future, they didn't know for sure. So.
Oh, it talked about that.
Yeah, it was specifically mentioned semiconductors, like the president mentioned it by name.
I'm just gonna Google Nintendo semiconductors and see what comes up. I just want to read that because I actually didn't get a chance.
My
to read
Nintendo News had it pretty recently.
This is an IGN article. Nintendo president warns of possible Switch stock issues in 2021 due to possible, not necessarily, like, not for sure, due to semiconductor shortage. In some cases, we may not be able to prepare enough orders. Has been able to secure materials for the immediate production of semiconductors needed for Switch production. Shortages may change that later in 2021. Okay, so they secured some. I don't know. Hard to say what that means, right? Still in the loop. But the fact that they even said that they secured some is I would say that bodes at least somewhat well, right? But we'll see. It may mean that if they have higher than usual demand, like if they end up having, basically what typically happens with Nintendo is that they have a certain level of supply, and then they release it and they're like, oh, you guys are buying more than we thought. Oh man, well, I guess we'll have to make more. I think that could be perhaps what we're looking at here, where they have a certain amount of supply that they anticipated, but if it turns out the demand is greater than their supply, it will be a lot harder for them to meet that demand like they've done in the past. I feel like that's what makes the most sense. At least that's what I want to believe.
It should get better soon. Like, companies are saying that the semiconductor issue should be over by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Everything should be back on track for 2022. Mm-hmm. So if there is shortages, or if they do need to delay the Switch Pro or something like that, it shouldn't be for more than delaying into next year.
Okay. We'll see. But I feel like, if the Switch Pro is coming out this year, right, or even it does impact things. And if Breath of the Wild 2 is also coming out there, that impacts things, right? It impacts how Nintendo maybe markets everything surrounding their E3 time, right? Yeah. So I'm transitioning to the E3 sort of stuff now, guys. Like, in my predictions video, that was like a big heavy emphasis for me, kind of considering this, like both the Switch Pro and Breath of the Wild 2, because both those things are surely a big part of Nintendo's plans. And if they're coming out this year, they're gonna have to keep that in mind with how they sort of push and market their E3. So, I think for sure, now that we know that Nintendo's gonna be at E3, we are getting an E3 Direct, and it's gonna be between June 12th to the 15th. Before this was confirmed, like, Nintendo could have decided to have had a Nintendo Direct in May, or like late June, or even early July. Now we know that we're getting this information that week.
I'm gonna say it's probably they'll do their Direct June 13th, and then have Treehouse on the 14th and 15th.
I agree.
They usually do like a 3-day thing, and they usually don't start on the first day, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But it's nice knowing for sure, because I've been like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna skip?
Now we know. Now we know that that's the date to look forward to, and it's gonna be great. Like that. That's it. We are getting official Nintendo news and announcements. The big summer blowout between June 12th and 15th. That
2 years instead of 1 year.
Yeah. It's gonna be great. Like, just having that confirmation alone is reassuring. Now, I guess I'll just go over what happened. Basically, it was I'll pull this up for you guys. But yeah, right here, E3 itself, confirmed that they'll be coming back. They got a lot of big partners like Nintendo and Microsoft and Capcom. But then here, Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America, said it's going to be great to get the video game industry back together with our fans this June. We'll make the virtual format fun and engaging. Looking forward to seeing all in June. So that's straight from the president of Nintendo of America. Like, this is happening. Nice. We're getting Nintendo news then. Now, technically, we don't know if we're going to get a Direct, but we're getting a Direct. Like, that's happening. Maybe they won't call it a Direct. Maybe they'll call it like an E3 digital presentation. They've done that before. But I'm pretty sure it's just gonna be like E3 2021 Nintendo Direct. There you go. And I think it's gonna be pretty darn amazing. I've sort of shared some of my thoughts already, but Brandon, I'm kind of curious to hear what you're thinking we're gonna maybe see during this potential E3 Direct.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say first off, no Switch Pro at the Direct.
Oh. No.
It's not gonna happen.
Okay.
They might show it off beforehand, only to just show off, maybe if they want to show off 4K trailers or something during E3. But even then, I feel like they probably won't, just because they usually don't even. Most companies don't even stream in 4K, even like to show off the next gen stuff they were streaming to like 1080p. So why would they do that? I think people are gonna come to E3. They're not gonna show the Switch Pro, and everybody's gonna be like, oh. Wow, no Switch Pro. It's definitely fake rumor. No, that's just not how they do things. They just haven't shown off hardware at E3 in a while. So
Yeah, it also comes down to when it's coming out, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm believing Bloomberg, and I'm gonna say that it does come out this holiday. But there's been a lot of speculation that it takes a little bit longer and it comes out early next year. Like, depending on that greatly impacts when we get an announcement for it, right? And
Sure,
but
true.
let's hypothetically just assume best case scenario we get the Switch Pro this year. I don't expect them to announce it till after E3. I expect it
They're
to
not
maybe.
gonna have time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess if let's say we get no, yeah, it's I don't really think so. Like, in my video, I kind of talked about 3 different possibilities. Like, I mentioned how, like, it's possible Nintendo could have a direct with the Switch Pro in it, but there's so much to talk about there. I really doubt it. And then on top of that, it's not even really maybe the best place to showcase 4K visuals because it's gonna be streamed, right?
Exactly.
It's probably better just to drop like an overview video, where you can just drop it in 4K and show off 4K visuals that way for everyone. So there's that consideration. But the other thing is that, okay, what about maybe Switch Pro being revealed before E3? So that's not, I don't think that's impossible, but if they show it off so early on, does that suggest it's coming out earlier in the year? I'm assuming it's coming out by the holiday, simply because based on what we heard in terms of the OLED screens that are going to be in the Switch Pro, they're not going to start manufacturing till late summer. So
they might not even know at this point if they can make it out for this year or not.
They might not, right? So maybe they're not even ready to make those announcements in terms of when it's coming out and all the details on that.
Yeah.
So definitely, I expect it to be later for sure. But another thing to consider is that if they're going to show off the Switch Pro, they're going to show off footage, like gameplay footage of games in 4K. Like, that's the ideal, right? Like, if that's the big selling point for the system, they're going to have to show off gameplay. And if they're going to show off gameplay, that could distract from the Switch itself if it's like new stuff, like, for example, Breath of the Wild 2, which I think a lot of people think is going to be like the big launch game for this system. That's not to say it's going to be exclusive to the Switch Pro. It just means they're going to have it come out on the same day. They're going to use it to sort of push the system. I think what makes more sense is that we get the E3 Direct first. Nintendo makes the announcements of all their games that are coming up this year. We actually get footage about them. We learn about them. We know about their existence and such. So then a month or two later down the road, when they do release the Switch overview trailer, we do see some of those games, but we're not like, oh my god, new footage of this. It's more like, oh, I already know about this, but now I can see how much better it looks on this system.
Right. Yeah, and I think that would just be a bad place to show it off at E3. I think the main selling point is going to be 4K. You might see some things like, oh, there's less pop-in in this game, or, things like that. But it's not going to be something that's so big of a difference that you can tell in a stream, you know? You're going to want to see that in a video. So I completely agree. Like, why would they show that at E3? They're not going to have time. They're going to be focused on games. I mean, they've said before at E3 that's when they want to show off games. They don't want to show off other things. They've said that in previous years.
Yeah.
For other things like mobile as well, they don't want to show off that because they're just focused on their home console games. That's what E3 is about for them. They're just the games, not hardware, not anything else. So, yeah. So that's my first prediction. No Switch Pro. They won't even mention that it exists. We won't even know for sure if it's a thing or not.
And I predict that people will be saying it's a fake rumor.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
People are gonna be like, "Oh, they didn't show the E3 fake rumor."
Yeah, but
so that's kind of my first prediction there.
Right, but we will both agree we're probably at the earliest we see it is like late summer.
Yeah, like July or August.
Yeah. That's if it's coming out this year. And even if let's say it comes out in November, like they could wait till like September to announce it.
Yeah. I think they might want to push it a little bit farther for a more expensive system than they did for this Lite. So maybe like July or August, but September, conceivably they could show it off in September.
Right. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that if we get into September and it still hasn't been announced yet, I'm not going to be like, for sure it's not happening. Right. If we get into October, then I'll be like, yeah, this is definitely coming out.
It's not happening this year.
Yeah, for sure. But I'll also tell you that, we're gonna get Breath of the Wild 2 at this event. The
100%.
Venue that AJ Numa has continually alluded to that we're gonna be getting details for Breath of the Wild 2 for is this E3. That I believe. I 100% believe that. Obviously, there's a small possibility. You know, I'm not going to say small possibility. I don't know what the possibility is. There's a possibility that there's a Zelda Direct beforehand based off some rumors. I don't agree with that, though. I feel like the venue is E3 because that's where you show off Zelda. But if we go back to the Age of Calamity reveal last year, Aonuma came out during the little video presentation. He was like, hey, look, I know you guys are excited for Breath of the Wild 2. Development's going smoothly, but we'll be talking about it at a later date. And then during the February Direct, same deal. And then they gave us Skyward Sword HD.
I think he even used the words, you'll only have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, a little bit longer is E3. That's
Nintendo time, yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So when Nintendo says it's going to be a while, that means years. Hence Metroid Prime 4. So, you know, I think that's where we're going to see Breath of the Wild 2. We talked about earlier, it's where that's going to be the big focus. But obviously, depending, maybe it's not obvious. But so we're going to learn about Breath of the Wild 2. I think we're going to get a title drop. We're going to see about the gameplay. We're going to see more. We're going to see everything about this game. We're going to learn so much about Breath of the Wild 2. It's going to be a full blowout. But it's going to include a title drop and also a release date. We're going to learn if it's coming out this year or not. And I feel like if they do confirm the release date, I do feel like that would be implicative of when maybe Switch Pro could be coming. Like if Nintendo says Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out this holiday, then I think that bodes well for Switch Pro. Now, it doesn't have to come out at the same time, but I'm just saying it bodes well for Switch Pro this year.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I kind of think that they might not be as linked as people think they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that they will come out day and date. Maybe within the same month or within the same, like, you know, holiday or something like that. I'm kind of like thinking, I'm actually leaning towards that it won't come out day and date. Like, I'm thinking it's more likely that it won't come out the same day and the same date as the game.
Sure.
Especially, I mean, they like having special editions come out a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
So they might even come up with Switch Pro earlier and then have the Zelda come, or they might just do a Zelda version later. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's kind of my thinking. But I guess it does I do think they will try to put them out within at least the same, like, quarter.
Maybe. I mean, I guess the interesting thing is that we've been speculating on when we're getting the Switch Pro, when we're getting Breath of the Wild 2 for a while already. And I think 2 months from now, we're going to know. Like that, we're gonna know. Maybe we might not know for sure about the Switch Pro, but like, we'll see how Nintendo's positioning themselves. We'll have a really, 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 really good idea. So, you know, I think, we're gonna learn so much this summertime. But let's kind of move away from the Switch Pro stuff, right? And just like other things we could see during this Direct. We agree we're getting Zelda stuff, a whole bunch of Zelda stuff. But then there's other things, right? Like, I think you and I both agree there's a really good chance that even if this Fire Emblem remake rumor is fake, there's still probably a good chance that we see a new Fire Emblem game announced, because just based off the timing, we get a Fire Emblem game every 2 or 3 years. So 2019, we got 3 houses. We're in 2021. Maybe we get a Fire Emblem game this year. And even if it doesn't come out this year, it could still be announced for this year. So, you know, I think we could be seeing that at E3 for sure.
That's a good prediction.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, for my next prediction, we're gonna see something from Monolith Soft. We're gonna see something big.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see, I think it will probably be that medieval game.
Okay.
It could be Xenoblade 3, but I think it's a little early. I think we might see that in a year or 2. I think they're gonna come out with that medieval game first.
Okay.
And then push Xenoblade 3, maybe even for the beginning of the next Switch generation. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna see something from Monolith Soft. Something.
I agree with that. That's another one of my pseudo predictions as well. So
might not come out this year, but we'll see it.
Yeah, my prediction is that we'll see either Bayonetta 3 or a game from Monolith Soft. Not necessarily both.
I actually think we're gonna see both.
Well, I mean, you could be right, but so my thinking is that if Nintendo is coming out with the Switch Pro, I mean, they are. I believe they are. but the question is kind of when. But if they're going to have this system to come out with it, they're going to want more than just Breath of the Wild 2 to be a showcase for it. So they're going to have some other games there that will do that. And again, they're not going to reveal Switch Pro at E3, we think. But they're still going to announce those games that will take advantage of it, right? So that's why I keep talking about how like we're going to learn a lot about how Nintendo's going to be positioning things. Because say, for example, we get this whole E3 Direct, and it's all just side-scrollers and remakes, and Breath of the Wild 2. Like, that'll be fine. We'll enjoy it. But I feel like that'll be like, oh, so there's only really one game that would look really amazing in 4K, right? That would be a good way to sort of show off the system. Then maybe that's suggestive that the Switch Pro might take a little bit longer, right? But if you see games like Bayonetta 3, a new Monolith game, it's like a big open world, right? Things like that, then you're like, okay, those are other games that will be graphical showcases for the Switch that they may want to sort of show off in 4K as well. So that's my sort of thinking with that. I think they'll definitely at least have one game from at least one of those that will be the kind of game that will sort of grab the attention of people. They might even open up the show with that, assuming there's no Smash character.
Yeah, I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 2... I think people kind of are a little down on the graphics because it's more of an anime style, but also because the resolution is pretty low. It's a 720p game that also has a lot of like anti-aliasing, so it's kind of blurry. But you get DLSS up to 4K, that's literally an 8 times resolution increase. So that game would look stunning. Then you gotta imagine that, they only took 2 years to make that game. That was the first Switch game.
An appropriately optimized Monolith game will look pretty darn good, even on base Switch.
That could be a showcase for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. But the thing is, there's just so many options, right? Like, I have a hard time believing we'll see this new Monolith game, a new Bayonetta 3 game, Breath of the Wild 2, and then also a new Donkey Kong game from the Mario Odyssey team, this new Fire Emblem game. There's also the Pokemon stuff. Then there's also potentially what the ARMS Mario Kart team has been working on as well. So that's just kind of like a lot to show off. And then there's also Splatoon 3, right? We could potentially get an update on that. I think they might save that for a little bit later. What?
I think they won't talk about. I don't think they'll talk about Splatoon 3.
I agree with you. I think they'll show off a little bit later. It's not coming out till 2022. I think the focus of the show is gonna be 2021.
They'll probably talk about Splatoon 3 in September.
Maybe. Yeah, I agree with that. But I do think that they'll probably announce a couple more games for 2022, but still, the bulk of the show will be about 2021.
Yeah, I mean, Monolith Soft's game could definitely be a 2022 game, or Bayonetta 2 could be or Bayonetta 3, could be a 2022 game. So, I think though, I'm gonna be honest. I think that there's a possibility that all of those games you mentioned, or most of those games you mentioned, could be shown off at E3. I think Bayonetta 3 is just way past its time. We need to see something of that. It's been so many years. There's no way that game is not at least getting close. Like, they could show us something. We already got confirmation that the lead producer wants to show us something this year. So E3 is the best place to do that.
I mean, you could be right about that, for sure. I think there's definitely a really good chance.
Hasn't come on the game since 2017.
Yeah.
So, it's all kind of adding up.
Yeah, I see a question here from, is it PI? Maybe? They added me. Thoughts on a Kirby game being shown at E3? I think I saw that Hal was sort of teasing that they would have some reveals this year. We got Kirby games pretty frequently. I don't think it's a stretch.
Kirby game since 2018.
I think we could see another one. That's not a stretch at all. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I did have a super chat from Taker610 here. It's a little bit of a different topic, so we won't dwell on it too much. But did you guys watch Xenogamer Nintendo Black Crisis collab on Breath of the Wild 2? They theorized a lost world under Hyrule where the game takes place. I mean, that sounds pretty amazing. We already see in the trailer that there is like an emphasis on exploring under Hyrule, and they're gonna have to expand the world a little bit, right?
So I'd say for a while that underground exploration was probably a thing.
Yeah, I do love the idea of a lost world, though, right? Because this is such an old Hyrule. There could be so many things that have been underground or
whole
just...
Zonai
Yeah.
thing. I'm sure they'll lean into it. I mean, we got those underground caverns that definitely seem like Zonai caverns. There could definitely be like a whole Zonai civilization, because they hinted that the Zonai were there in Breath of the Wild, but they didn't really go hard into it. And we saw that they had like caves, like even in the original Breath of the Wild, they kind of had hints that a lot of this stuff was buried underground. Like we just saw like the tips of structures sticking out.
Yeah,
mostly.
like Arbor's grounds is just buried in the sand. So
Yeah.
that's and that used to be high up in the air in Twilight Princess. So it just kind of goes to show you that there's a lot that's underground in Breath of the Wild. So that it's a perfect opportunity to sort of revisit a lot of things that they were not able to revisit in Breath of the Wild. Give us a lot more temples and dungeons and things of that nature. Maybe some lost cities too. Like that'd be really cool to see. I don't know if there'll be people in them, or maybe there'll be an entirely different race. So, you know, there's a lot of potential there for sure. I definitely think Nintendo is going to touch on that, because I mean, it makes sense just based off the world of Breath of the Wild and the trailer.
Even the Zonai mazes that you find, those 3 mazes,
yeah,
they all have underground segments that look like they even could go down further. There's even one where you like drop really far down underground, where there's just a bunch of guardians down there.
You know, to kind of tie this back into E3 discussion, right? We got to think about what they're going to show off at E3. And I think at some point we'll have like a separate discussion for this. I might make a video on it. But what would a Breath of the Wild 2 E3 demo look like? Because you would think that what would make the most sense would be to kind of have like a Great Plateau sequel. But maybe it wouldn't, because we already understand the open air sort of gameplay, right? Like they're gonna want to think about how to showcase this game, and they may want to focus on how this game is different, you know? So
yeah, for sure.
And we don't know the direction of this game entirely. So kind of, you know, it begs the question, like, what could they showcase that would make sense? And then obviously, I think that's really hard to predict. But
right, because at this point, it's like we're looking through a keyhole, trying to see what's going on.
Yeah,
you know, we
and
don't
it's a little
have that
blurry
much
on top of that. Yeah, like it's very we don't
have
know.
One puzzle piece, and we're like, I wonder what the puzzle is.
Yeah. Like, you know, we could guess, they'll just have a whole bunch of, like, underground exploration. Maybe. But maybe they don't. What if it's in space or the sky or somewhere else, like a whole
underwater? I am pretty confident they're going to lean into underwater stuff. Because there's the whole ocean that you can't go under. You can see stuff down there, but you can't swim under there. There's a whole Lake Hylia. You can't go anywhere in there. There's all kinds of underwater places that they could just be like, boom, underwater stuff now. There's all this place you can explore that you literally couldn't go to before.
Yeah. I don't know. And I don't think it's a good idea to focus too much on story with a gameplay demo. Like the trailer will be for that.
Yeah, they'll have trailers for that.
Man, it's tough. It's tough to say how exactly they'll handle it. I mean, there's ideas I have, right? Like they could focus on the underground exploration. They could perhaps, I think they'll show us maybe what the Zonai hand is going to do. We'll have an understanding what that is.
Oh yeah, they're going to have to show off all those new powers.
Maybe we use that in the game. Maybe that's something we get very early on, and we kind of see what that does. And I feel like it could have even like a hookshot mechanic. And the reason that's valuable,
it's a replacement for the runes.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it's going to add a lot of platforming mechanics, right? Like, for example, we've seen concept art where there's been a similar like thing on Link's hand, and it was kind of like a hookshot. I feel like a hookshot-like mechanic makes sense because, one, old Zelda fans will love to see a hookshot, but also, two, Breath of the Wild is, you know, it's open air. That's as Nintendo touts it, just not just open world, which to me, it's sort of like suggestive of a even more open than open world games, because it's focused on the verticality as well. And just kind of more you can do with that. So they may try to expand upon that even more so. So having like an improved sort of hookshot mechanic that allows you to zip around more freely perhaps could sort of highlight the greater sense of verticality and open airness of the sequel. So I feel like we can definitely see that in the demo.
Dude, imagine if they lean into that with their physics engine, and you can even do cool stuff like grapple the ground, pull yourself forward, and then flip into a shield surf, get that momentum to throw you forward.
Maybe.
And then slash into an enemy. Like, there could be all kinds of potential for using that as momentum. I think there's also a big complaint about Breath of the Wild is how long it takes to climb up stuff, especially in the rain, and how frustrating that is.
What if the wire
having a
bug
hookshot would definitely
in
be
Monster
good.
Hunter Rise is a hint towards what we're gonna see in Breath of the Wild too? You know,
That'd be cool.
I don't know. It sort of feels a little similar to me. And the wire bug's amazing. It's like one of the best parts of the game. It just kind of expands upon everything. It
that
makes
air
platform
stall
building
you
battle
can do
better. What?
would be that air stall you can do where you just hang on a
Yeah.
wire bug?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. So it would be interesting what they could do with that for Breath of the Wild too. But let's jump back into the chat here. Thomas Owen, sorry I missed the beginning. Did you guys think Metroid will have a presence at E3? I do think there will be. I haven't really touched on it yet.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about it now. Let me get to a couple more questions, and we'll circle back to that. All right. Tiger610. There's also that new mole-like species introduced in Skyward Sword. Maybe Nintendo does more with them. Makes a ton of sense. If there's gonna be a lot of underground exploration, we'll get to see the mole people for sure.
The mole. I liked them. They were cool.
They were very cool. I would love to see them revisit that, and maybe other Skyward Sword species.
Yeah. We need more species in Breath of the Wild. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
It's
just
not enough.
make it
Not
a
even
more
close.
denser, varied world.
Yeah.
Ronnie Fazio, this is just hypocritical, but there's a very slim chance they could announce Fire Pass 3 at E3. Drum roll. I not saying I would love to hear that we're getting more DLC. I just don't expect that. I expect we'll get one more Smash DLC character announced at E3. Theoretically two, but I'm expecting just one. I think that if it's gonna be a Nintendo character, it's gonna be a Zelda character, and they may save it for the Zelda stuff. But I feel like the most likely situation is we're getting a third-party reveal at E3, and my two best bets are either Rayman or Crash.
Those are good options.
Yeah.
I will say I hope that there's not a Fire Pass 3, because I want Sakurai to take a break and then work on something new that's not Smash.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're getting this next Smash game for a long time.
So, my thinking is that we're going to get one more character revealed at E3 and then one more character a little bit later into the year. And what may happen is they may have a final Smash update. And there's been some speculation lately, based off what we've seen from like the Australian website, that there seems to be perhaps a suggestion there'll be one more character. I could see like a bonus character, maybe a bonus stage once they're done with everything. And it could even coincide with a 4K patch for Smash Ultimate. And maybe they even release a bundle that has all the DLC packaged together, kind of like how they handled Pokemon
Can they fix
last
the
year.
online?
No,
That's
no,
what I
but
want.
I mean, I think they're still gonna have patches that were, stability, improvements and things of that nature.
Throw those servers on the new Monster Hunter server.
Right, they may do that too. Like maybe the final Smash update includes something like that. It includes 4K for the Switch Pro 4K. It includes, maybe a new mode or maybe a bonus character, something like that after the Fires Pass, and that's it. Not a Fires Pass 3, but a final update. And I think what's exciting about that is that, sure, it'd be the end of Smash, but we've gotten so much for Ultimate. I think at some point you just gotta, there's a lot of content there. We can enjoy that for years. But we get that final update. And then, to your point, that then affords Sakurai the opportunity to move on and do other great things. Maybe we finally see him revisit Kid Icarus, for example. But then also, this would impact how Nintendo pushes and markets things, right? Because pretty much every time we get like a Direct, we expect a Smash character. So with Smash gone, what are they going to do that after that? Where does Nintendo go from here? And I think there's a few different options. One option is that they have other games, big multiplayer games that will have continual updates.
Splatoon 3, bro.
Splatoon 3 is coming.
Splatoon 3.
That's a great example. Splatoon 3 is definitely, coming.
Dude, Splatoon 3 lines up so well because that's just like that's their live service game with like Smash is, and it's coming out like just a little bit after Smash is finishing its updates. So that seems I didn't think about that. That's definitely planned. I feel
Yeah.
like.
And it might not just be Splatoon 3, because there's also the looming game from the ARMS Mario Kart team. They clearly have a history of making incredible multiplayer games as well. So there could be, it might not just be, we may not just be banking on Splatoon 3, it's probably going to be a combination of things, but perhaps that game's also going to be a big online-centric game. Perhaps Mario Kart 9, perhaps something else. I'm really pulling for an F-Zero, but I know that's a pipe dream. But, you know, something like that, like a new big Nintendo multiplayer game alongside Splatoon 3, where we get continual updates on those, then that kind of helps to kind of give us, maybe fill a little bit of the Smash void when it comes to, like, announcements and stuff. But I also think that kind of positions us to have something else be the focus at the Game Awards, for example. So, and this kind of brings us back to Metroid. It all circles back. Don't worry, Thomas, I didn't forget. So, my thinking is that we are going to get a Metroid game shown off at E3, and I do think a Metroid game is coming out this year. I do not think it's Metroid Prime 4. I would love to see a Metroid Prime 4 teaser at E3, but based off all the things we're talking about, there's just so many things. I think they're going to have to save some things for a little bit later. So what I think is going to happen is I think we will see a Metroid game announced, and it may be Prime Trilogy, it may be 2D Metroid. They're kind of interchangeable. I'm going to say the 2.5D Metroid first, but we'll see. And we'll see someone come up on stage, or maybe Kensuke Tanabe, the Prime producer, and say, hey, look, you know, we are working diligently on Metroid Prime 4. Development is actually going smoothly this time around. Retro Studios is doing an incredible job, but we're not quite ready to show it off to you yet. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer. But in the meanwhile, we have something else from the franchise to show you. And then they give us a trailer for a new Metroid game. And it could be like a 2.5D Metroid game. It'll look sick. It'll have the occasional first-person perspectives. It'll definitely have a bit of a Prime ambiance to it, but still be like the 2.5D style. And it'll be very hype. It'll be very cool. It'll look amazing. But what that and sort of enables is that as Smash is concluding, we'll have other hardcore-centric franchises to sort of think about, like Bayonetta 3, the next Xenoblade game, Splatoon 3, the next big ARMS Mario Kart game, and Metroid. So, you know, we get this Metroid thing, and this will all of a sudden will be in this new era where Metroid is relevant again. And I feel like at the Game Awards, since Smash will likely be done by that point, maybe we get the Metroid Prime 4 teaser then. I think that makes the most sense.
Huh.
Like, it can happen sooner. I'm not saying it can't happen sooner, but we're going to get something at the Game Awards is my point, and it's not going to be Smash Brothers, you know?
Yeah. I definitely think they might show off, like,
maybe
the Trilogy HD.
Maybe they do that.
Game Awards.
Maybe they do that instead of save Prime 4 for.
Because I'm thinking Prime
E3
4 they might want to save for
year.
E3. I think that's just too big of something to show off at the Game Awards.
I mean, conceivably they could also do both, right? They could give us a Prime 4 teaser at E3.
True.
And still reveal a Metroid thing. They could still do both.
I think it would be the very definition of a teaser, though.
Right, it would be very, like, they'll give us something, but it'll probably be even less than what we got for Breath of the Wild 2. And
it'd be like a render, or like maybe just Samus's in-game. I remember or something like that.
When we were still talking about like the Nintendo Revolution, Nintendo had revealed like a single still image of Metroid Prime 3, and it was like Samus like with a purple background or something in space. And we were like, oh man, let's analyze this. What does it mean? It just meant Samus. That was it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's something, or maybe it's like that. When they, I think it was the Game Awards, maybe, that they had the Zelda trailer for Breath of the Wild when it was the 2016 release date.
Yeah.
And it was just literally like 5 seconds long or something. It was just a pan.
Yeah, I think the difference is, though, is that this would be the first look at the game, right? Like the actual first look, not like the logo.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe they give us something a little bit more than that. Because remember, when we got the first actual look at Breath of the Wild, even though we knew about its existence well before that, it was a nice trailer. That's the trailer where we saw the giant green hills and then Link getting chased by the Guardian and the destructible bridge.
That was also at E3. It wasn't at the Game Awards.
Right. So, you know, conceivably we could get that at E3. I got to, you know, something's got to give. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
we're going to get a new Monosoft game, Bayonetta 3, Donkey Kong, Fire Emblem, a nod to Pokemon, another Monster Hunter Rise update, Shin Megami Tensei 5, which they need to talk about because it's coming out this year, and then
Yeah,
talk
they
about
do.
all the Zelda stuff, and then Metroid Prime 4, and then the 2D Metroid, and then this Arms Mario Kart game. Like this, you know what I mean? Like and there's got to be some third-party stuff
Yeah.
too. Like that, something's got to give. Is my
The
point.
ones that I would definitely cut, definitely I don't think they're going to talk about Metroid Prime 4 this early.
Okay.
I'm not
So you
even
don't
sure if
think
they'll
we're
talk
getting a
about the
teaser?
Game Awards.
Okay.
I think they might just wait until E3 2022.
Maybe. Maybe. I guess the thing is, like, how far off is Metroid Prime 4? Is this a 2023 game? You know, is it 2022? Like,
I'm still thinking it might even. I'm kind of leaning towards 2023. I think it might be possible they could go for 2022, but I'm saying what my current thinking is they're gonna show it off in 2022. It's gonna release 2023.
I agree with that. I think. I feel like there is a best case scenario. The best case scenario is holiday 2022. That is a best case scenario in my opinion. Best case scenario. I feel like there's definitely a really good chance, perhaps a much better chance, is 2023. And I say that because we still haven't gotten a Metroid announcement yet. So, you know, they got to space these things out. Like, we're assuming we're getting this new 2D Metroid, 2.5D Metroid this year. Then maybe you're right, and at the Game Awards we do get a Metroid announcement, but it's not Metroid Prime 4, it's Prime Trilogy. But what's exciting about that is that this Prime Trilogy could be kind of like a Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition sort of thing. Maybe it has some new content in there. Is Silex going to be playing a bigger role? Maybe they have like a Silex mission thrown into Prime Trilogy. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Ooh,
and maybe
nice.
this game could even take advantage of the Switch 4K, which likely will be, well, maybe not likely, but there's a good chance it could be announced by December. So they could be like, hey, look, this is also a 4K capable game optimized for the system. And it's kind of like, it kind of whets your appetite for what Prime 4 could be, you know? And then once, you know, we've gone those things, and then, you know, like at E3 2022, you're right, and they start blowing out Prime 4, or at least they give us like a big trailer, and then, you know, we transition into Prime 4 marketing and such.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking, because like if you show off Prime 4 as early as like the Game Awards or at like this E3, that's just gonna overshadow anything else you talk about for Metroid. And I just don't think it's. I think it's too early. I don't think it's coming out early enough that they want to talk about it. Because you talk about Metroid Prime 4, all of a sudden this 2.5D Metroid is just not looking so hot, and neither is Prime Trilogy. You know, people are just gonna be like, oh, they showed us Prime 4. It's gotta be pretty. Like they showed it. It's gotta be pretty close. Like no, you know, it's still a ways off, and it's just gonna overshadow everything. I think it's just a bad idea.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they did show up Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 2019. Here we are, 2021, and some people think it won't even make it out by the end of the holiday, right? They think it might come out next year. And the game's been in development since 2017.
True.
So
We haven't seen any other big Zelda games, though, coming out at the same time.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough. But I think we both agree, though, that we're going to start getting Metroid news at E3, right?
Yep.
No? Maybe?
Yeah. I think we'll see either the 2D game or the Prime Trilogy.
One or the other. One or the other. Yeah.
Not both. I don't
Yeah.
think.
But Metroid fans are going to start to get some love, though. I think is the real sticking point here.
Yeah.
So I got a super chat from DOS. Thank you very much, Dio. I think the green hand will serve as a claw shot, and the magic meter is going to come back as a durability meter for it to not break the climbing mechanic. Maybe it's mixed into that. Okay. Oh yeah. Maybe. That would be. Yeah, I think that there definitely has to be a limitation to it. You can't just offer complete freedom to it, but maybe something you build up throughout the course of the game so you have more options with it. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Especially if what Brandon is saying is true, and it's kind of like the replacement for the runes, you know, you're going to be relying upon this green hand mechanic to do a lot of different things. So, you know, building that up gives you more options, more ways to explore the world as you progress. Yeah, I think that you're definitely on the right track there. Bob, Tom, Andre, when are you going to be added to Smash? Just you wait. That final Smash update, I'm the bonus character. You'll see. Yeah. But moving on, going beyond Metroid, let's talk a little bit about Donkey Kong. Do you think Donkey Kong's happening? I think so. I think we're getting a Donkey Kong. I mean, there's a chance they save it for later, but I think it's in development.
They're probably working on something Donkey Kong by now. I mean, it's been 7 years since Tropical Freeze, so like you'd think eventually we'd get something. I mean, there are rumors that seem to be fairly credible, so I don't know. It's just my gut feeling is kind of more 50-50, like it could happen, but I don't really feel it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the things that I'm less confident on. Like, if I had to predict something to fall through, not get announced, it's probably Donkey Kong. But like,
I could see something being saved for later on. So the reason why we're so confident about Fire Emblem and Metroid and Donkey Kong is these are things that have been sort of leaked or rumored by credible sources that have gotten other leaks and rumors right in the past consistently. Basically known insiders. So the thing about this though is that we never really know when these things are coming. Like, we've known about Pikmin 3 Deluxe for years. We know about Prime Trilogy for years. We still haven't gotten that announced. 3D All-Star was known for quite a while. It's these things that, like, you're like, okay, they're happening, but when are they happening, right? Like, I remember, like, Prime Trilogy and the 2D Link's Awakening were kind of... We knew about both before they were announced. Prime Trilogy still hasn't been announced yet. But the Link's Awakening was. Another one that was talked about around the same time was Pikmin 3 Deluxe. That finally happened, but it took a long time before it was actually announced and it came to market. So I guess the point is that with these rumored games that are coming from, the sources are coming from insiders that are credible, that we believe, we don't know when Intel's going to decide to show that off necessarily. So, you know, sometimes like there may be some inklings of it coming out this year, but it might not be. So yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. And that's only assuming the rumor's true, right? It might not even be true.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there's a good chance we're getting Donkey Kong.
I mean, I'd be
whether
super
it comes
happy
out this
for
year or
Donkey
not,
Kong.
that's certainly debatable. But I feel like I think there's a good chance we see it at least announced.
I'd be hyped for it. Tropical Freeze is my favorite 2D platformer, period, by a lot.
Yeah.
I'm usually not even that big of a 2D platformer fan, to be honest. Like, not even Mario. Like, I don't really even like 2D Mario, but 2D Donkey Kong, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love 2D Donkey Kong, so I'd be super hyped for that. It's just something in my gut just doesn't want it. It just like doesn't feel it. You know?
Okay, well, I'll tell you this, and this is just straight facts. Okay, the supposed, well, I'll get to the facts, but first I just want to fully explain the rumor. The rumor is that the Mario Odyssey team is making this Donkey Kong game.
Right.
Now, it has not been, from what we've heard from the rumors, they're not saying it's a full 3D Donkey Kong game, just for the record. It's been suggested to probably more along the lines of a 2D game. Maybe it'll be 2.5D. But either way, Mario Odyssey team is supposedly working on this. Even if they're not working on this, the Mario Odyssey team hasn't come out with a game since 2017, and the DLC for Mario Odyssey was just a few free DLC updates. There was the Luigi Balloon World thing, very basic stuff that just a couple people probably needed to work on. Point is, they haven't done anything since they haven't come out with anything new since 2017. It's by the end of the year it'll be 4 years, so there's a really good chance they could at least announce what they've been working on. It could be a whole new Mario game.
Yeah.
It could be something else entirely different. But I feel like there's a decent chance it could be Donkey Kong. So
I gotta say,
yeah,
I'd much rather it be Odyssey 2. But
you haven't seen it yet, though.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it yet, though. Sometimes, you know,
Well, I mean,
Nintendo
just in
knows
general,
what you want better
like-
than you do.
Yeah. Just in general, like, just a 2D platformer versus a 3D Mario game. I just think I'd much rather have a 3D Mario game, but...
Watch it be like a crossover, like it's Mario and Donkey Kong together.
I mean, they incorporated so much Donkey Kong stuff into Mario Odyssey
Yeah.
that it wouldn't shock me too much.
I don't know. it's tough because it does make sense for them to be working on another Mario game, and they may be doing both, right? It just means that Mario game may take a couple more years.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some miscommunication about what this rumor is. Maybe it's more of a 3D Donkey Kong game. I don't know.
If it's a 3D Donkey Kong game, then ho ho ho.
Or maybe it's something that's not quite either, right? Like if you look at what the Mario team has done. First of all, they made Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, okay, which is a 2D Donkey Kong game that looks amazing on the GameCube. But they've also made the Mario Galaxy games and the Odyssey. And if you look at all those games, yes, there's 3D components. It's mostly 3D, but there's also a lot of 2D elements as well. They're sort of meant to sort of remind you back of the good old days of the 2D Mario games, but it has a lot of 2D gameplays by point. So imagine if this is more of a hybrid thing. Like maybe it's more of a hybrid Donkey Kong 3D 2D game, 2.5D. I know for most 2.5D games, they're still basically 2D, but they just have like 3D visuals. This could be something that goes perhaps a little bit beyond that. I don't know. But
the difference for me between like a 2D and like a 2.5D is like typically in a 2.5D game, you can move forwards and backwards a little bit. Sometimes it's on different planes, like Little Big Planet. Sometimes you can just move back and forth on a limited space. And then a 2D game, you can just only move in 2D.
Right.
But the visuals can still be 3D.
Yeah, like Metroid Other M, I would say it's a 2.5D game because there were 10 times you would like turn corners and go. It was like a 3D environment, but it was presented in a 2D way. But you could also, like it was a 3D space, just 2D perspective, and you occasionally could go into first-person mode as well. So that was like one of the crazier like 2.5D games we've seen.
Super Paper Mario is a 2.5D game.
Yeah, because you literally can go into 3D mode. Yeah. But it's like, it just rotates the camera 90 degrees. So which is fascinating. So I don't know what it would be exactly. We're gonna have to wait and see. But I do feel like Donkey Kong something may be happening. If not that, something from that Mario team is in the works. Something. So. That much is a fact. That team hasn't come out with anything since 2017. So, they're working on something, and there's a good chance that could be one of the things they show off.
For sure.
I mean, there's so much we could talk about, right? This isn't necessarily.
How long did it take them to make Odyssey? When did their last game before they come out? They worked on 3D World or no?
Pretty sure.
I'd assume so, but
3D World.
When did 3D World come out?
2013. Am I wrong?
2013 or 2014?
I believe it came out 2013.
I think so too.
November 2013, and Mario Odyssey came out October 2017. But it was supposedly pretty much done at the beginning of 2017.
Yeah. They were still optimizing it to.
Yeah,
they were still learning more about how the Switch works.
But it's a 4-year development cycle there, right? So like, if you kind of maintain the same pattern, it would be suggestive that the team would be ready to come out with another game for the end of 2021.
Yeah, and I mean, if you already know the system and everything too, potentially you could get out a game that's even bigger in that amount of time.
Yeah.
So.
I got a couple.
It would be odd for me if they were just making a 2D Donkey Kong game in 4 years.
Yeah, but don't get me started on Retro Studios. Don't get me started on Retro Studios, though. What have they made? They made Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze back in... When did that come out? 2013? Or the 2014?
I think it was 2014.
2014. They came out with Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze in 2014. That's it. Nothing else.
They've been making tech demos and improving their engine.
You know what it is? I think 2D Donkey Kong curses development teams to only make that. Like maybe that's what's going on. What's going on here? Birdman added me. So a new Mario movie trailer this year because it's supposed to release next year. Right, I think I heard something about that. Well, no, that might have been an April Fool's joke. Either way, I feel like they've been working on this movie for a while.
Jokes this year?
Yes. that we could get it, but still, that's a good thing to bring up. That at some point we may see a Mario movie trailer. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah,
Obviously not E3, but
it makes sense, especially with the Nintendo Universal Park opening up, Super Nintendo World. Like they're gonna want to push that movie soon. It's great marketing.
For sure.
Tay Rule added me. Don't forget all of the DK characters referenced as street signs in New Donk City and Super Mario Odyssey.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's some references there. There's a history of the Mario team working with Donkey Kong, so I don't think it's really that crazy that they could do something very Donkey Kong related.
Nope.
Yeah, and it would definitely be great to see King K. Rool and the Kremlings again. That would be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely 100%. King K. Rool. It will be the villain of the next Donkey Kong game.
It would be a
or
mistake
he'll at least
otherwise.
be in there.
Yeah.
Imagine if he took a Bowser like role and he actually was like almost like helping you.
Maybe, I'm not opposed to it. It depends. It really depends. But Brandon, is there anything else you kind of want to like touch on related to E3 before we kind of call it a close? Guys, if you have any sort of final questions or points you want to bring up, put them in the chat now. This isn't necessarily like our E3 predictions podcast because that'll happen like a week before the show, but
right. We'll have a lot more information then.
Yeah.
What to expect.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's gonna be a pretty big E3. I kind of agree with you that it's gonna be like the second half of it's gonna be Zelda focused, like we had with the Smash, during E3.
Yeah.
What was it, 2018? So I'm kind of thinking that this E3 will potentially rival E3 2019, which was like the best E3 almost ever. So I think it's gonna be pretty big, especially with Breath of the Wild 2. It's gonna be there. I think that's gonna be the big showcase. But they're gonna have some some other things. Potentially Bayonetta 3. Potentially this Donkey Kong game, Metroid, Monolith Soft game. They're gonna have some big stuff. I think that we're gonna see kind of the opposite of what we saw in 2019, where the Switch Lite came out and we saw a lot of 3DS and previously like handheld titles coming to Switch. I think we're gonna see a lot more like core, home console focused games to launch around, maybe probably not exactly when, but sometime around this new Switch Pro.
Yeah, for sure. This could be hype. It could be real hype because it's at the very least it's like the developers have more experience with the Switch. We can see a lot more ground up games. You just look at Monster Hunter Rise. It's like one of the best looking games on Switch. It runs so well. It looks beautiful. We could be seeing some pretty sick looking games come E3 2021. And I'll tell you, while there's been a lot of rumors for a Fire Emblem remake, a 2D Donkey Kong game, a 2D Metroid game, and like Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD to come out this year. All of that really nice, but I definitely kind of am more on your side, Brandon, in terms of thinking that there's going to be a lot of other games that are perhaps more of a showcase for the Switch, like your Bayonetta 3s, like your Monolith Soft games, like maybe that Donkey Kong game is pretty impressive looking, maybe the Metroid game is pretty impressive.
Tropical Freeze was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Tropical Freeze was a very impressive looking game for sure. And then of course we have Breath of the Wild. There's so much. There is so much that we can maybe see. But let me address a few comments here in the chat, guys. This is last few minutes here, so if you have anything else to say, put it out there so we can kind of address it. But Amin Musa, with Age of Calamity coming in holiday 2021, do you think Breath of the Wild 2 could also come same time? Yes, because I think the Age of Calamity DLC is not a big deal, like at all.
No.
It's not like this is. It just isn't. It's not going to be like Breath of the Wild 2 DLC or anything like that. I don't see that really taking up the space of a Zelda release at all. Like, I don't plan on buying the Age of Calamity DLC. Maybe it's because I haven't seen the trailers for it, but I think the fact
they literally haven't showed us anything about it.
I think the fact that they didn't even show anything about it is indicative of their expectation of it. Like, I'm not saying it's not going to do well for what it is, but it's just not gonna be like the big focus thing. Like, think about this for a second. When AJ Numa came out to do his little bit in the February Direct, he talked about Skyward Sword, talked about the Joy-Cons, talked about Breath of the Wild 2, did not talk about Age of Calamity DLC at all. That was a completely separate part of the presentation. And I wouldn't be surprised that this Age of Calamity stuff is actually not even part of the Zelda stuff in the E3 Direct either. It's Age of Calamity is made by not Platinum Games. It's made by Koei Tecmo.
Yeah.
So, you're not necessarily a Nintendo thing, and then it's DLC of a not necessarily Nintendo thing spinoff. So it's
I'm
it's just
even
not
thinking
that big of a
there
deal.
might be Breath of the Wild 2 references and things in the last pack. So the last pack might actually come out after Breath of the Wild 2.
Maybe like if Breath of the Wild 2 is like an October thing or something. I just don't see it. I just don't see the DLC taking up that role for Zelda.
No.
Then
Definitely not.
If we don't get Breath of the Wild 2 for the holiday, it has nothing to do with the Age of Calamity DLC is the point. But we'll see. Brandon P. Adamy, likely a partner showcase or a mini direct a couple weeks before E3. I think if anything we see maybe like either a mini or a partner showcase. I would say more likely a partner showcase. I don't even feel like we need a direct mini right now. A Pokemon Direct a week or two beforehand. I don't know why I said Hond.
Beforehand.
I don't know.
I think Pokemon Direct might be like what we get. Maybe some trailers or something for something else.
They may call it Pokemon Present instead. I think they kind of transitioned from Direct to Presents. But,
I'm not expecting a Nintendo Direct or a mini or any specific Direct other than possibly Pokemon Direct, and that's it. Actually, I'm not even like only possibly, probably a Pokemon Direct before E3. It seems to be a trend.
Dash Attack. How much for remake will Fire Emblem be, assuming it's Path of Radiance? I don't know, dude. I would like to think that they're working on a remake that is like basically in the Three Houses engine.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what they did for their other remakes. They just used the engine that they were using for whatever they were doing.
But if this rumor is true, and we're getting both of them, and it was initially meant for last year, just a year removed from Three Houses, it may be the case that it's more of a remaster and it's just two games packaged together.
Maybe.
I really hope it's more than that.
I feel like they won't, just because that game's so old.
Yeah. Also, if it's a remaster,
so
they probably would have been able to get it out in 2020. They really needed to,
Yeah, they definitely could have.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to think it's going to be using the Three Houses engine, but we'll see.
Like, people are kind of disappointed about how Three Houses looks. Like, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn look like garbage.
They did.
They look like absolute trash.
I don't think they looked like garbage back in the day.
They looked okay back in the day. Like
I think back then I think what it was, the cutscenes looked amazing back then. That's what it was.
Yeah, they're like premium stuff.
Yeah.
But like I did a comparison for Three Houses when that game was coming out. I was like, ooh. Yeah, even looking at like other GameCube and Wii games, like, oh, this does not look good at all. Like, it honestly looks like worse than the 3DS games. It looks like absolute garbage.
Yeah. See, I think we're pretty much done here. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Javier Vasquez. Age of Calamity is separate from Breath of the Wild, and it's probably not canonical, so it won't have any relevance with the Zelda Direct. I agree with that.
It's in its own little canon.
I'm not sure if I want to use the wording non-canonical, just because the Zelda team didn't approve of it.
It is canon, but it's on a different timeline.
It's canon, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
like kind of like Triforce Heroes, for example. It's canon, but it doesn't matter. Like that. But I mean, I think we're pretty much done here for the evening. I'm sure there'll be more news to come, guys. Make sure to check out Brandon's channel, and also we were shouting out Sean earlier. His channels are also linked in the description below as well. He makes some Brand's working
Yeah.
with him, making some pretty cool video game music. So check that out. The channels are linked in the description below. But that's all for now, guys. Hopefully we get some cool news throughout the week. Stay tuned. Videos will be coming. But that's it. Take care.
Bye, guys.